Well, I want to thank, of course, Gordon and Larry and TransLink. I've had a terrific whirlwind tour of Vancouver. I have to say, I came to Vancouver about 10 years ago, and I was invited by Bob Lingwood, who ran the Victoria system at the time. And when we were done with the tour, he took me over to Vancouver in a seaplane, which was very cool. I don't usually commute by seaplane. And we were flying into Vancouver, and the sun was out, and it shone on the mountains, and it shone on the city, and I thought, oh, this is like heaven that we're entering. And then I got there, and it turned out you had this entirely integrated transportation system. I had this one card, which when I went home, I started talking about as the Willy Wonka ticket. You know, you could go anywhere with this card. You could go on the ferries, you could go on the transit, all the different transit lines. And so for 10 years, I've longed for the golden ticket that you have, and that was 10 years ago. So it's been amazing to see the transformation in the city over the last 10 years. And I really look forward to sharing some of our successes in New York, and also I've learned a lot from the staff here and the people that I've met about what you're doing, and I'm bringing a lot of ideas back home. I'm sort of known for my ability to borrow or steal ideas from other places, and I think there's a global competition going on in terms of, and it's great, and a sharing of best practices, and we need to see more of that. So I'm going to talk about our experiences in New York and implementing it. I think in my conversations around the world, it's really interesting. There seems to be a real confluence of interest, particularly in biking programs, really, I think, stemming from the increased recognition of the need for energy independence and for a more sustainable city, and the fact that we really need to move people around in our increasingly crowded cities more effectively. And so, especially in the United States, as our country becomes more urban, we have to do a better job in terms of how we structure our cities. And we've experimented with a great many street designs, which I'm going to go through with you, to increase cycling over the past couple of years. But before we get started, I think it's really important at the outset to establish that cycling is really part of an overall sustainability strategy in New York City. It's one component of it. And that shift began with Mayor Bloomberg when a couple of years ago he announced a long-range plan for New York City, PlanNYC, the city's sustainability initiative. And it came from this, it started as a planning exercise, a regular planning exercise about how the city could continue to grow and thrive over the next 25 years. And there were a lot of round tables that were done, citizens coming together to say, you know, when we look out the door, when we walk out our door in 25 years, are we going to like what we see when we walk out that door? And so this was an unprecedented effort to look systematically at the systems in the city of New York. And it concluded that the only way to secure the city's future was to reduce the environmental impacts of our systems, doing things like investing in mass transit, and improving the quality of life in our neighborhoods and business improvement districts. And transportation is the area where we found we could make the most profound impact in this area. PlanNYC emphasized transit expansion, mobility strategies like biking, and congestion pricing. How many of you followed the congestion pricing debate? Okay, so you feel our pain. It was really an astonishing program. We, by the end, had a majority of New Yorkers support the idea of charging $8 for cars to come into our central business district during peak hours. We got it approved by the city council, and it was defeated by the state legislature that didn't even vote on it. But it was important in that it started a different conversation among New Yorkers about how people get around. You know, nobody really knew that 95% of the people that commute to the central business district do so by transit. Nobody knew that. So we're talking about the 5% of people who were driving into the central business district. It was a great conversation, and I think it really laid the groundwork for a lot of the support that we've received for the work that we've done going forward. So we elaborated on PlanNYC's themes in our Sustainable Streets strategic plan. And it's the first time that we actually had a clear written document that laid out our vision, our policies, our projects, and also laid out a series of benchmarks for the public to hold us accountable to what we say we're going to do. So in every single area, we've got 7 chapters in a variety of areas. This is the overview. In the year that we've done this plan, we're implementing it, we're reporting on it, and now we've initiated some new goals, which you can see here. So it's really this is really the guidebook to New York City streets, and we're very excited about it. We've also, our overall approach to the city streets and our transportation network really is to view them as the valuable public spaces that they are. I have jurisdiction over 6,000 miles of streets in New York City, which I like to say makes me the largest real estate developer in New York City. Donald Trump, nothing. New York City Department of Transportation, we've got it all here. And so to look at our streets as valuable public spaces rather than as these sort of utilitarian corridors, they're all about making cars go as fast as possible from point A to point B. And that worked as a strategy for some 40 years. And now we need to really revisit that strategy, come up with a new strategy so that we can continue to grow and thrive in the years to come. This is actually by 34th Street, and this is the project that we just recently implemented. You can see the polka dots. We're doing it with low-cost materials, epoxy gravel and thermoplastic markings. So we also look at our streets as valuable green corridors, looking to build public transit corridors, and really look at our streets as places of social and economic life, and not only just about maximizing car usage. So the approach has been pretty well received. People are really hungry for more public space. This art class, this is in Madison Square, 23rd Street. You can see the Flatiron building there, the skinny building there. They came out within 1 hour of our putting up the orange barrels. So, it was like, and every time we've done this, we put up the orange barrels, and people are so hungry. They are like, it's like a Star Trek episode, where you bzzzt, and people are suddenly there. That's sort of how it goes. It's really amazing to see. So we've created over 3 acres of new public space in the heart of Midtown, Times Square, Herald Square, Madison Square. How many people have heard or have been to Times Square, Herald Square, and that? Wow, I could just end this presentation now. You know it all. Well, it's, the Times Square is still in the pilot stage, and, we're reporting on the mayor. To the mayor on pedestrian volumes and vehicular volumes, and he will decide at the end of December whether to keep it or tweak it or terminate it. And so it really put our greening efforts and our world-class streets efforts on the map. It's really the showcase of our new approach. But probably what is one of the most innovative pieces of our approach is our rapid implementation program, and that's something that Gordon and Larry referred to. And this approach is laid out in our World-Class Streets report, which really documents the need for more inviting spaces. We commissioned Jan Gell to do a public life survey of our streets. How do people actually use our streets? And we found some interesting things. We took a look at Broadway as part of our program to reconfigure Broadway. And we found that 30% of Broadway from 59th Street to Houston Street is covered in scaffolding. Covered in scaffolding. Guess how many outdoor cafes there are on that corridor? 3. And they're largely no seats. I mean, it is not uncommon to see people like sort of trying to sit on like a fire hydrant or, sort of anything that's there, and it can get messy and ugly. And so we're doing everything we can, again, to provide seats for New Yorkers. And a critical focus of our work is really on safety, and I can't say that enough. We've driven traffic fatalities to their lowest levels in New York City history. They're lower than they've been since the city started collecting data on this in 1910. So we're the safest city by far out of any big city in America. But we need to continue to work on that downward trend. And so what we're doing is we are targeting our efforts on our most vulnerable pedestrians, and that's kids and seniors who are significantly overrepresented in traffic fatalities in the numbers. And so we started a Safe Routes to Schools program, which is the largest traffic calming program in the United States today, hundreds of schools encompassed by that. And we've also started a Safe Streets for Seniors program, targeting seniors over 65 that I mentioned are overrepresented. We can't significantly continue to reduce pedestrian deaths without dramatically changing this situation. And so we're really focused powerfully on this. And we use demographic and crash data to decide where we're going to put these interventions in. We've targeted 25 areas, focus areas. It's been well received. And although it's tough to assign causality, I'm really happy to report that Senior traffic fatalities are down 43% since we started this program just in 1 year alone. Senior pedestrian fatalities are down. So it's this kind of a before and this kind of after. It doesn't have to take a lot of work to transform these places. We're also working hard to build new mobility into the network. We're looking to improve our bus system. We started a program on Fordham Road in the Bronx, which is the major east-west connector in the Bronx. We did off-board fare collection. We gave priority to buses on the streets. We did camera enforcement. And we saw travel times go down by 20%, ridership go up by 30%, and something that is unheard of in the history of the city of New York. We did a survey of transit riders, and 98% of them were satisfied or very satisfied. That never happens. So we also were pushing really hard to build out this mobility network because it's also cheaper and much quicker to deploy than rail. We're on our 4th groundbreaking of the 2nd Avenue subway. So we need to bring more mobility fast to the streets of New York, and it's a clean, effective way to do that. We've actually got the largest bus fleet in North America, and we've got the distinction of the slowest bus speeds. The traffic engineer that used to work for me used to say that the only way to get across town was to be born there. So, that's not a great strategy going forward. So, we're working on it. But before I turn specifically to cycling, I really want to emphasize that we couldn't launch these new initiatives if we weren't taking care of the basics. And Mayor Bloomberg deserves an enormous amount of credit in this regard. We have 789 bridges in the city of New York. All of them are in a state of good repair, but for one that's being fixed right now. We've got 6,000 miles of street, and 70% of them are in a state of good repair thanks to that investment. So the infrastructure crisis that is facing so many cities, I'm happy to say, is a thing of the past in New York. And it's a very, very powerful investment in the city's future. For our current work on cycling, we're really building on some of the infrastructure work that happened some 15 years ago. We built out bike lanes over the 4 East River bridges, and that's been terrific. And how many of you have been to the Hudson River Greenway? So you know what that's about. It's basically a bicycle highway that runs along the west side of Manhattan. So with PlanNYC, we built on this foundation, and in the last 3 years, we've put down 200 miles of on-street bike lanes. That's the equivalent distance from New York to Boston. So we've done a lot of work with that, and we're starting to fill in what were the missing gaps in our bike network. You can see it's really dense in large parts of the city. This is around Cooper Union, is in the middle there, and you can see that we're building out in Brooklyn. So as we move forward with innovative designs, we're taking a look at areas that have been really difficult to accommodate bikes. So this is a busy highway that we've got going on. This is the project that's on Sand Street in Brooklyn. It's the approach to the Manhattan Bridge, and we couldn't design anything to take account for the off ramps there. So we put in a center median, and it is wildly successful. It offers safe passage across the Manhattan Bridge, and it was a nightmare before, and it's really important to fix the East River bridges and make sure that they are spectacular bridge crossings, because that's where we get the majority of our traffic. The new street designs that we've got include advanced bike boxes, and you can see the green bike lane, the green colored lanes next to the curb. But our foremost design really is the first protected bike lane in America. And what we did is took a page from Copenhagen's book, and we flipped the traditional bike lane and the parking lane. So then now we're using parked cars, to actually protect cyclists. And it also does a good thing in that it preserves parking and truck loading and unloading opportunities in these corridors. It's been a big success, and crashes of all kinds are down 50%. Cycling is up some 50%, and it's working. Again, much safer streets that we're designing for the city of New York. This is the uptown version on 8th Avenue, and we've also implemented a narrower version. This is on Grand Street in Soho, and it also is working well. We've seen a 30% reduction in crashes in this corridor. This is the view from the street. Yeah, it is good, isn't it? I think it's good, too. I have to do a shout out to the folks at New York City DOT because, we're 5,000 people strong, and we have some of the most talented professionals in the business. And they, it's people from traffic signals and pavement and markings and traffic mitigation, all coming together to get these projects done. And it is a spectacular team. And I hope you have the opportunity to come and meet some of them in New York. When we're taking a look at this work, it all really was under the umbrella of the fact that we have to accommodate 1 million more people between now and 2030. So the challenge is really to make a 9 million person New York work better than an 8 million person New York does today. And New York is a great place to focus on. Cities like New York and Vancouver, I think, are the future of the planet. When you think about it, New York City has 1/3 of the carbon footprint of the average American, because in New York City and like in Vancouver, we live energy-efficient, transit-oriented lives, right? So, if you really want to save the planet, I think you should all move to New York City, okay? So I'll be taking names as we leave here. So we're moving forward. We're now implementing a two-way bike lane. This is our first two-way bike lane. This is on Kent Avenue in Brooklyn. This is the completed section. This is a section that we just finished. This was taken last weekend. We hadn't finished it then, and you can see people are like, it's not even done, and they're on the path, So this is a family of 5, and really, I really look at families as the indicator species for the safety of our bike lanes. If families are out there biking, these are safe conditions. And again, whether you're 7 years old or 70 years old, you should feel safe, on the streets of New York, whether you're walking around, biking around, taking transit. So in addition to the safety benefits that I've talked about, better streets literally mean better business, and that comes from research around the world. It's not just window dressing. The business improvement districts in New York City support this program. We're tracking the before and after data on Broadway to see whether it results in better results there. It's going to be tough because we're in the recession and it's global downturn, and so it's tough to do the before and after comparisons in a difficult environment. But we've seen it in other places in New York City. Bryant Park, 20 years ago, was basically an open-air drug exchange, it was really a difficult place. It's right behind the public library. They did a whole renovation of the park. Now property values there are 225% higher than they are in the surrounding neighborhoods. We've just implemented a new Park in the Sky, the High Line, which has been a great success, and it stimulated 50 new construction projects in the area and $5 billion worth of investment. So, this really is dollars and cents. It's not just flaky stuff that you're doing on the side. There's a strong economic development value to the work that we're doing here. So another take on our designs is on protected bike lane designs is on Broadway, where in addition to the bike lanes, we created these linear plazas. And it's really it's added much needed space to Midtown Manhattan, where there largely wasn't any green places to sit and walk around. I remember when we first launched this last year. This is 2008, sort of the precursor to the larger Broadway program we're doing now. And there was a guy that was interviewed. We have fairly active tabloids in New York City, and this guy was interviewing this gentleman that was grousing that nobody's ever going to sit here, and I'm not eating my tuna fish sandwich here, and I don't want to have it served with a layer of carbon monoxide. And so we were talking about try it, you'll like it, and Paris tried it, they liked it, London tried it, they liked it. And so it was very funny because about 5 minutes after the interview was over, I looked over, and there he was sitting there having his tuna fish sandwich, having a perfectly fine time at it. So as you can see here, this is phase 1. This is a stretch between Times and Herald Square. You can see we just put epoxy gravel down, painted the curb. That's not a real curb. That's a painted curb, and put the bike lane in and some planters, and off you go. These lanes really are not, though, these bike lanes in this part of town are not for racing at top speed. There's a lot of interaction. You can see the pedestrians just, sitting there walking nearby. It's just really for mainstream bikers who really want to get it around town without having some kind of extreme sport experience. Because it's really, 10 years ago, that's what it was. It was really like this daredevil kind of activity on the streets of New York. And now we don't look at it as alternative transportation. We look at it as fundamental transportation in the city of New York. So here you can see how we built the bike lanes into our overall design. This is Madison Square before. This is Madison Square after. You can see the bike lanes going through. You can see the plaza piece. I'll do a little before again. and after. And this is Herald Square. This is before. This is we just did this project in 2009. This is the before, and this is the after. So, yeah, we're very happy with this one. My favorite part of this picture is actually the do not enter except bikes. I really like that one. That was a new sign for us. So doing a pedestrianization of Times and Herald Square means that we are able to reallocate some of the space that had been used for traffic lanes and extend the sidewalks and put in bike lanes, because Broadway no longer is going to function as a through street in New York City. The magic of what we were able to do with the Times Square and Herald Square closures was really reconnect the grid. Broadway cuts this crazy diagonal through the streets of New York City. It was the only irregular footpath that was left when the commissioners created the traffic plan of 1812 in New York City. And it did great things. It created plazas and interesting places, but it was a nightmare for traffic engineers. And so there had been congestion on Broadway for as long as there have been traffic engineers. And so they tried everything except for this. And so what we did is we really reconnected 7th Avenue. We took Broadway out in these areas where you've got three-way intersections, and we restored it. And so you have 356,000 pedestrians in Times Square each and every day. So that's a lot of people. And what ended up happening was people were literally fighting for space on the sidewalk. They were trading in this security of the sidewalk for the streets just to get around. And, New Yorkers are a funny lot. If we think that somebody's, taking their time, looking around, we get really impatient, and it's like, move out of the way. But now there's enough space for everybody in Times and Herald Square. And so people are coming out, even New Yorkers, who stayed away from Times Square, are coming in, really enjoying it. And it is really a wonder to see. So all of these new designs we pulled together in a new street design manual for New York City. We worked for 2 years, pulled 11 agencies together, and now every single project that touches a street in New York City needs to adhere to these guidelines. These are all sustainability treatments, all of the bike lane treatments, the bus lane treatments. All of the stuff that I showed you today is all in this street design manual. And so it ensures that our approach continues beyond a simple transportation commissioner or a mayoral administration. And so I really urge you to go online and take a look at it, and we're sharing it. It's in a notebook form so we can continue to add to it, and we are really grabbing the innovations that everybody's doing around the world to improve their cities. So one of the things that we're finding is really interesting when we talk to other cities, they really want to replicate some of the work that we're doing in New York, but they find themselves rubbing against state and federal standards, which really emphasize highway interstate standards, and that's not the streets that we're designing. And so what we're doing is we've pulled together a coalition of 14 cities called NACTO, National Association of City Transportation Officials, and so we're working together to develop alternative guidelines. And so we're hoping that will be a nice compendium to the MUTCD going forward. So bike-friendly streets aren't the only area we're active in. We're really actively building out better bike parking facilities. We repurposed some of the new bus shelters that we have to put in new bike shelters. And we have a new bike design. Bike parking, bike rack for New York City streets. We did a partnership with the Cooper Hewitt Design Museum, had an international competition over 30 countries, and this is what we got. And we've tripled the number of bike racks in New York City. In addition to, we've got 6,800 bike racks on New York City streets right now, and in addition to improving the quality of the streets. So when we did this design competition, I'll tell a short anecdote here. I went to Copenhagen I went to Bogota, Colombia, with our city planning commissioner, who's terrific. And we went on this, we were with Enrique Peñalosa, and he actually picked us up at the airport, and we got immediately on bikes. And we were on bikes for the next 7 hours. So it was quite a little entry there. And after 7 hours on a bike with people, you're kind of, you're getting a little tired. And so you start talking about things, random things. I started talking about how much I love David Byrne. Oh, I love David Byrne music. I think his writings are great. So I'm going on and on about David Byrne. Anyway, skip forward. David Byrne ends up doing this art installation at the Battery Maritime Building in Lower Manhattan, right? And he's got this cool project. He's taped the sounds of New York City, and he's put them all into this one organ. So the public could go in and actually play the sounds of New York. It was very cool. And so they had this opening, and I got this invitation to go, and there was this dinner. And so you know how those big dinners go? So I'm looking around for where my seat is, and like they're concentric rings, you know? So I'm on the outer ring, and I'm looking for my name, and I don't see it, and I go further and further in. And lo and behold, I am sitting next to David Byrne. Oh, my God. Thank you, Amanda Burden. So I get into a conversation with him. I'm talking about, you know, a mile a minute about we're doing this and this and this, and we want to do this international design competition, and I want you to serve on the jury. And, of course, he agrees, and we start talking about it. And he gets so excited about the design competition that he starts doing his own sketches. And he does these sketches, and they are fantastic. And we end up working with his local gallery, who ends up producing them. And it's great, and you can find his sketches. Actually, he's just written a new book called Bicycle Diaries, and all of the sketches are in there. It's a really terrific book. So we now have fabulous bike racks in New York City. This is in hipster Williamsburg. We now have actually context-sensitive bike racks. So this is hipster Williamsburg. This is Bergdorf, which is really great. And this is Wall Street. So it's been a wonderful ride. You can have an awful lot of fun. Here's the secret. You can have a lot of fun as the transportation commissioner in New York City. And in many places, you know, parking's at capacity. You know, in parts of Brooklyn, if you stop for like more than like 5 minutes, somebody's going to chain a bike to you. You know, it's everywhere. And so what we're doing is we're grabbing now parking spaces and repurposing them, and we're creating bike parking areas, particularly near transit stops. So we're doing bike and ride. And we're really also doing what we can to get the word out on biking. We're creating a new information infrastructure so that people can find out, you know, where the bike racks are, how to get around, what's the best route to take, whether you want a safe route, a fun route, you know, the quickest route. You know, you can put your route in and find out what the best way to go is. Indoor bike parking is a huge issue in New York City. We did a survey with the New York City, the city planning department, and the survey showed us that the number one barrier to people biking to work was the lack of indoor bike parking, because people are reluctant to leave their bikes on the streets of New York for more than 8 hours. So we've taken the simple task of creating bike parking in government buildings. And now we're taking on the harder task, working with the private sector. We just passed the most sweeping piece of bike legislation in the country. It mandates that owners of commercial office buildings with freight elevators provide bike access if the tenants ask for it. So that is a huge, huge deal. And so we're working really hard right now so that we can actually build that in and remove what we think is a really artificial cap to bike commuting. And we've also got new zoning regulations, which I think you also have here, which require that all new buildings have bike parking built into the design, so that fighting for access is not going to be an issue going forward. So all of these projects are showing results. Our lanes are starting to look like they should. We're building it, and you guys are coming, and I thank you for coming, and it's great. You can really see it in the numbers, the year-over-year increases. In 2008 alone, in 1 year, since we started with the new bike infrastructure, we saw a 35% increase in bike commuting. It's more than doubled since 2000. We expect now to double bike commuting from where it is now by 2012. We had that number. It was going to be 2015, and we're going to triple it by 2017 instead of 2030. So one of the important pieces, I think, to note is that, you know, the safety component of cycling. And so while cycling numbers are up, you can also see that our streets are also getting safer. And so that notion of their safety in numbers certainly is proving itself out on the streets of New York. We're still trying to do more. We've got a great public education campaign going, you know, the Look campaign, so that people look out for one another on the streets of New York. It's complemented by a really great TV campaign. So I urge you, if you're interested, to go to nyc.gov/look, and you can see some of the new campaigns. We're really working hand in glove with the city's health department also on all of this. It's provided some of the money for this. And we're really working, that's our next initiative really moving forward, is we're really closely partnering with our health department. When you think about it, we've got a crisis of obesity and diabetes in New York City, like lots of cities in the U.S. And so we have to do something differently to address that. And cycling is an easy way to build in new mobility, more active transportation into our network. So a few other noteworthy things that we're doing. We don't think our streets need to be used the same way at the same time. And so we started this program last year, Summer Streets, where we closed Park Avenue, 7 miles of Park Avenue, from the Brooklyn Bridge to 72nd Street. And we made it available for New Yorkers to play, walk, dance, breathe, and enjoy their city in a whole new way. And we also programmed the streets. We had yoga offerings and dance offerings and kickboxing offerings. As I talked to some people earlier today, my favorite thing was a kickboxing class that I took with the deputy mayor that I report to. It was great. It was great. I really suggest you look to implement that. So what does the future hold? I'm looking forward to having yellow checkered bikes next to yellow checkered cabs in New York City. I think it's really amazing to see some of the new systems that are out there. We took a look at the Montreal system. It's wireless. It's solar power. They came out and showed us what they were doing along with other providers when we did Summer Streets this year. We have more cyclists on the streets than anybody else. There are more people that commute to work by bike from Brooklyn than the entire city of San Francisco or the entire city of Portland. So we think we're really on path to be America's #1 cycling city. We're going for the gold in that in 2010 Olympic terms. And all of our work is available online. I think it's really important for cities to share what they have. And so you can get all of these publications, from the strategic plans to our street design manual, our Sustainable Streets Index. We've also done a lot of work to reorganize the data that we collect and what we're measuring. You know, what you measure gets done. And so it's really taken a strategic look at travel trends and makes the case for the kinds of investments that we need to make going forward. So that's probably everything you ever wanted to know on biking in New York City. And I think it's been really terrific to learn about your work here, and I really look forward to bringing some of your innovations back to our small little laboratory that we have in New York City. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to question and answer.